Good evening, folks. Welcome to the midweek update. While we are waiting for people to join us, let me put on some nice music for us to listen to for a minute and a half or so. So, glad you could join us tonight. A little bit of church news. We published our reopening guidelines for small groups. Those went out in church chat. They're on the website. I think they went out on Facebook. The link went out on Facebook and the website as well. I don't want to go through all those guidelines. You can read them yourselves, but the churches are going to be available now for small groups, both inside and outside, with some restrictions on the size of the group. There has to be social distancing and masks. There are some requirements for cleaning up after you leave, and you have to get a reservation. You have to call ahead and you also have to take attendance so we can use it in case we have to do contact tracing. So all of that's in the guidelines, but the building is no longer closed for small groups. As you know, you've gotten information about Consecration Sunday coming up on the 28th. It is a financial stewardship program, but it is not about meeting the needs of the church. It is about, as Pat Luna once told me, the need of the giver to give, or a way to put that would be how sacrificial giving can cause us to grow spiritually. And we need to be reminded of that often, that giving is a way that we can stretch and grow spiritually. That will be on the 28th. We'll have a guest speaker. We'll have a boxed lunch meal that day. In the letter that went out to you this week, you got a response card. You can either turn that card in, or you can call the church, or you can respond on a Google form. There are links to that on Facebook, on the church website, and on email. All of that is in there. You need to respond by noon on the 21st. So we need to know if you're coming. We want everybody to be a part of this, just like we did when we did it fall of 2019. We would love everybody in the church to be a part of this process. We've gotten pretty good response so far. We'd like to have even better response. We need that by the noon on the 21st so that we can make reservations for the meal. The other thing is, I was asked, do we have pledge cards or commitment cards? We do, but those will be given out on the 28th. That's the way this works. You're handed those at the beginning, and you turn them in by the end, and they're only available otherwise after the service. We're not giving them out before the service because we want you to come to the service. So that's what's going on at the church. Some updates. I have very sad news. Brent Upton, Raleigh firefighter and son of Bruce and Melanie Upton, passed away at 6:45 this morning. And please pray for Bruce and Melanie and for Brent's wife, Catherine, and his 5-year-old daughter, Ella, and also for his brother, Blake, and his family and others in that family, and for the Uptons. So prayers for them. I don't know what the arrangements are going to be yet. Pray for others in our congregation who are being treated for cancer. That would include Lisa Anthony, artist Sandell, Doug Harwood's dad, Hal, who lives in Stanley County, is being treated for cancer, and there are others who wish to remain unnamed. We want to lift all of them up. We want to pray for all others in our congregation who are suffering. We have some folks who have surgery scheduled for the next few weeks. We have others who are recovering from surgery. We have folks with other chronic illnesses, and we have some church members and family members who have been struggling with emotional illness and mental illness during this time. It's a bad time for it. This pandemic has been a stressful time, and it has attacked not only our bodies but also our psyches. So we want to pray for all of those. Please pray for our country. Pray for the family members of the 8 people who were murdered in Atlanta yesterday by a who knows what his motivations were. 6 of the 8 people that he murdered were Asian, but it doesn't seem that that was his motivation. But we'll find out more later. But prayers for their families, and continue to pray for our country as we continue to go through this pandemic together. And that just a reminder. I was going to say this later, but I'll say it now. Just because we have vaccinations and people are getting them, and the weather is nice, and Texas opened up, and North Carolina decided to try and get kids back in school, we are still in a global pandemic. We've gotten the numbers back to where they were in October, but as you recall, folks, in October we had already been in the pandemic for 7 months. We don't have numbers back to where they were 13 months ago. And that means that I have already seen people taking masks off, taking risks. You can still get sick. No, everybody hasn't been vaccinated. Everybody's not going to be vaccinated. So please continue to do what you know you should. Wear a mask in public, stay 6 feet away from strangers, and wash your hands every time you touch something. That hasn't changed. I want to pray for our United Methodist denomination. Our general conference called General Conference is on May the 8th. It's virtual. We're having an all North Carolina conference meeting of pastors tomorrow online for 2 hours. And among other things, our bishop is going to talk to us about the future of our denomination. So we want to pray about that as well. And please remember, tomorrow evening from approximately 2 till 8 o'clock, we are under the threat of severe weather that we haven't seen in 9 years. Not since 2012 have we had this level of threat. They're calling for 75-mile-an-hour winds and possible hail. So please be careful. Be in a place tomorrow evening where you can be inside and be safe. Make sure you know where you would go in your house if there were a tornado or severe winds. And get your pets in so that they don't get hurt by the hailstorm or the winds. But I'm praying for everybody to be safe. Would be remiss if I didn't give God thanks and offer thanks for the vaccinations that are out there. We're so grateful for that process that began under the Trump administration. Let's give credit where credit is due. It began under the Trump administration and has been extended under the Biden administration. I want to thank anybody who is a part of that on either end of it for bringing that to us. We want to pray for the people in Europe who have had to take a pause because the AstraZeneca vaccine seems to have some problems. And also want to give thanks for the stimulus checks. Most of you by now would have received something either last year, this year, or both. And certainly most of us are having issues of some kind or other, paying our bills, paying our taxes, some worse than others. Be wise with the money. I saw an article today. Warren Buffett, who's one of the richest men in the United States, said that what he would do with it is he would pay down high-interest credit card debt. So if you have high-interest credit card debt, Warren Buffett says a good use of your stimulus check is to pay that down. Although I know a lot of people are going to spend it on luxury items. But anyway. The devotion tonight is it's an interesting article that I read, and I shared it with the Council on Ministries today. It's by Bill Wilson, who is the director for the Center for Healthy Churches in Winston-Salem at Wake Forest Divinity School. It's called Moving Churches from Risk Management to Risk-Taking. And I thought there's some wisdom here that we need to take into consideration, church. On this 1-year anniversary of the start of the pandemic, it seems appropriate to take stock and assess the American church. For many of us, the year has been the challenge of a lifetime in ministry leadership. Boy, that is an understatement. The obstacles and demands of dealing with the pandemic have stretched us in ways we never thought possible. We have done things we thought were at best optional, technology. We have done without things we thought were indispensable, hospital visits. We have realized how much of what we did was meaningless repetition, long, endless meetings. And we've come to appreciate how much we took for granted the most basic parts of congregational life, like human touch. We've seen people step up and flourish in these hard times, and we've seen the hard times wipe out people we thought were redwoods. All of this is true. One phrase continues to hang over many of the churches and ministers I engage with: risk management. Opening and closing buildings, limiting or eliminating in-person events, monitoring our health and our interactions, all have led us to become keenly aware of our risk management obligations. Early in the pandemic, we wondered about legal liability if someone were to become infected while participating in events at our church. And so we severely cut back on those events. Although I'm going to have to admit that that wasn't our primary reason for closing the facility. Our primary reason was to keep people safe. We sterilize, we wash our hands, we've become adamant and diligent about infecting others, and so we wear masks and keep our distance from each other. Risk management has become a prioritized way of life for us. That's what a pandemic does to us. It heightens our awareness of our vulnerability and forces us to grow more risk-averse in the process. All that's fine with regard to the virus and its transmission, but there's another reality at play for many churches. Our risk management awareness and wariness may well bleed over into our spiritual life and cause us to become so risk-averse that we miss the opportunities before us. I believe we're about to enter a season of life in the American church that cries out for churches to embrace risk-taking. The pandemic has launched a potentially creative disruption of the norm that we desperately need if we're to enter the future with a creative and innovative mindset. I agree 100%. We have opportunities ahead of us now that we never had before. This is a moment we may not see again for many years. The rupture of our former model of doing church has opened doors for risk-taking that wise leaders will recognize. Rather than going back to normal when restrictions are lifted, and he has normal in quotes, thoughtful leaders will recognize this is our chance to reverse some of the ominous trends of the last 20 years. In other words, our chance to undo some of the things that we were doing that were not helping and not growing our church. The data is overwhelming. Nearly every denominational body in America shares a trend line that predicts an imminent threat to the long-term viability of many local congregations. If you're brave, pull together the data for your own church over the last 20 years, and you'll find a similar reality. We're entering a decade that many will predict will see a significant percentage of local churches go out of existence. If ever there was a time to be open to risk-taking, this is it. What then does risk-taking look like for a church? I think it means at least these 5 things. 1, we acknowledge that we're in the midst of a crisis that is larger than we have realized. For many of us, a sense of urgency that has been lacking needs to be fed and funneled into some hard conversations. People aren't going to like that, but it's a fact. Number 2, we spend time reconnecting with our reason for being. There's a word for that. It's called our mission. And reconnecting with those priorities. We go back to the book of Acts and we devour those stories and lessons. How do we become an Acts 29 church? 3, we confess that much of what we do and how we do it is simply preferences and not priorities. We humble ourselves and acknowledge how far we've drifted from the focused church Jesus envisioned. Number 4, we put aside our personal comfort and preferences and embrace the idea of being part of a gospel movement rather than being a member of a church club. Number 5, we personally pledge to engage in and participate some form of risk-taking that makes us uncomfortable so that our church may not only survive, but thrive. We commit to criticize less and pitch in more. I haven't read a word in this yet that I don't agree with 100%. What all this will look like will vary greatly from church to church. However, it inevitably will involve something that challenges you and makes you uncomfortable and pushes you out of your comfort zone. It will mean you don't simply insist that your church go back to the way it was, because that way is a shortcut to irrelevance for many of us. Instead, we'll discern our way forward by clinging to our valued principles while embracing sanctified imaginations that cause us to be risk takers, even while everything is screaming to be risk managers. Like the early church, we may find that our crisis moment actually becomes a catalyst for more profound meaning and purpose than we ever knew possible. Bill Wilson, thank you so much for saying what we need to hear. This is our opportunity not to go back to what we were doing, but to stop doing the things that we were doing that were not faithful to the mission of the gospel, and to start developing some new habits and new ways of being the church. It is St. Patrick's Day, and so today I have the prayer. It's called the Lorica. The Lorica is a breastplate. It's called the Breastplate of St. Patrick. This prayer is almost 1,600 years old. And what I want you to do is to make this your prayer, because it's written in the first person. I, written by St. Patrick, a prayer he said for himself, but let it be the prayer that you say for yourself. It's a prayer for power and a prayer for protection. And a repeated phrase in this really strikes me. It's called, it says, I arise today. I arise today. That's what God wants us to do, to arise today and every day into the glory of the gospel and to live that out in our lives. So here is the breastplate of St. Patrick. Let us pray. I arise today through a mighty strength, the invocation of the Trinity, through a belief in the threeness, through a confession of the oneness of the Creator of creation. I arise today through the strength of Christ's birth and his baptism, through the strength of his crucifixion and his burial, through the strength of his resurrection and his ascension, through the strength of his descent for the judgment of doom. I arise today through the strength of the love of cherubim, in obedience of angels, in service of archangels, in the hope of resurrection to meet with reward, in the prayers of patriarchs, in the preachings of the apostles, in the faiths of confessors, in the innocence of virgins, in the deeds of righteous men. I arise today through the strength of heaven, light of the sun, splendor of fire, speed of lightning, swiftness of the wind, depth of the sea, stability of the earth, firmness of the rock. I arise today through God's strength to pilot me, God's might to uphold me, God's wisdom to guide me, God's eye to look before me, God's ear to hear me, God's word to speak for me, God's hand to guard me, God's way to lie before me, God's shield to protect me, God's host to save me from the snares of the devil, from temptations of vices, from everyone who desires me ill, afar and anear, alone or in a multitude. I summon today all these powers between me and evil, against every cruel, merciless power that opposes my body and soul, against incantations of false prophets, against the black laws of pagandom, against false laws of heretics, against craft of idolatry, against spells of smiths and wizards, against every knowledge that corrupts man's body and soul. Christ, shield me today against poison, against burning, against drowning, against wounding, so that reward may come to me in abundance. Christ with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ in me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me, Christ on my right, Christ on my left, Christ when I lie down, Christ when I sit down, Christ in the heart of everyone who thinks of me, Christ in the mouth of everyone who speaks of me, Christ in the eye that sees me, Christ in the ear that hears me. I arise today through a mighty strength, the invocation of the Trinity, through a belief in the threeness, through a confession of the oneness of the Creator of creation. Amen. St. Patrick was the first missionary to the island of Ireland, and many of us have Irish heritage, including myself and my wife, who is half Irish. And so we owe, in large part, the fact that we are Christians to the work that St. Patrick started. What he started 1,500 years ago has not ended. We still can make a difference where God has planted us. Keep that in mind. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you all. God bless you. Good night and a better tomorrow.